Today we are welcoming a gentleman named Conrad Ruiz, and he's going to tell us all about how to manage our time using only our calendars. I met Conrad through our networking group, and we had a one-on-one. I was very impressed by this young man, and so I trust you will be too. And so we're gonna, yeah, it just seemed like something that we don't think about that much, but if we did, and if we did tweaked a few things, it might really improve might streamline our systems and everything else. I'm going to do a couple of little commercials about Digital Accelerant. Digital Accelerant is my company. It is what I call the umbrella of all the business accelerant things that I do. Hold on, I gotta mute everybody. There we go. Yeah, there's everything that Digital Accelerant is about is that word, the accelerant, the thing that actually tries to light things on fire and get them to go bigger and better, right? Not necessarily on fire to destroy, but to get things accelerated. So that's the name of my company, and with the Digital Accelerant, my primary business are digital business cards. So if you text the word Gabe to the number 21,000, you will get my card, and it will land safely on your phone. It will have access to all my social media channels, my LinkedIn, my YouTube, and my phone, email, etc. It has videos on there. It has audio on there. It also has my appointments and the networking groups that I provide. But really, the secret sauce is when we text it, we capture the cell phone numbers. So if you text the word cards to 21,000, you will get this page that has everybody on it. Some of you are in this room, and I send people to, we were talking about my prospecting earlier. Every time I do a sales call, I like to do it by Zoom so I can share my screen. At some point during that meeting, I'm showing this screen because it's very powerful for two reasons. One, it showcases all the different clients that I have and that they all are indeed custom done, custom built. But at the same time, I can pick out different people. A lot of people say, "Oh, I knew that guy. Oh, I knew that person," and I can actually connect them to some of you during that call, or maybe in the future by just having them text the word cards to 21,000. So something that I ask you to do is to, if you're talking with somebody, they might be interested in a digital card, have them text cards to 21,000 to see everybody else. And that way, again, that's part of the way that I'm trying to push business in as many different directions as I can. And just for your reference, the keyword Gabe to 21,000 I was the only one of the few that was narcissistic enough to use my first name. But that was when we just got started, and I didn't really know any better. And then afterwards, I figured it was probably kind of stupid to change it. But most people get keywords that really connect them to what they do, and these particular keywords that are in front of you are available. So flooring to 21,000 for a flooring company, obviously limo to 21,000 for a limousine company, spotless to 21,000 for a cleaning company, etc. So if you read these, as you read these keywords, if you can think of anybody that might be a good fit for them, please tell them about us, and we'll be able to knock those keywords off the list, because once they have them, that's it. So that any company in the United States, if the first one who gets limo, any limousine company, that's it, limo to 21,000, and it's extremely powerful. Referral accelerant is one of the other thing that's under my umbrella, and that is the networking. And many of you are familiar with that. We have weekly networking events that we put on, and they always have a little bit of a special twist as we do them. The next one is actually tomorrow, September 10th from 2 to 3:30 Eastern time, and we ask that you go to digitalaccelerant.com, same place where you registered for this. You can register for that, and we hope to see you tomorrow. So there's that, and the other way, and the best way to share it, if you're trying to get people to come, which we always are, I really like to welcome visitors, to bring new people in, and to make them feel welcome. There's a lot of different networking groups out there, many of which I attend, some of which I felt that when I first started, it was like trying to break into some kind of club. And we don't want that at all. We really want to, as soon as you attend one of our meetings, you're in our club. So that's really the feeling we want to portray. Knowledge Accelerant. That's what this is all about. The webinars that we do, and we've done, as I said, 5 or 6 already. We've got Andrea Pass who's here. She's going to be doing the one, I believe it's next week, with the PR. At the end, Andrea, you can talk about that a little bit as to what people can expect, but don't forget to have me remind me to allow you to give that minute towards the end. And Business Accelerant is our engagement pods that we do. And to learn more about that, just jump on our networking event tomorrow, and we usually showcase that for a few minutes. So if you want to learn more about any of that stuff, the best way to get to me is just jump right on my calendar and pick a time that's convenient for you. It's calendly.com/Gabe O'Neill, GabeOneeill, or you can even text calendar to 21,000 to get to it. And that is pretty much it. I'm going to stop sharing. And at this point, I'm just going to turn it right over to Conrad and let you take over. And, so have at it, young man.
Thanks, Gabe. I really appreciate it. Can everyone hear me pretty well? Is the volume a little bit better now? Excellent. I'm glad I'm not yelling in your ear. Most unpleasant. This is not the screen I want to share, but this is. So folks, today what I'm going to walk you through is basically just how to schedule more for your time. My entire premise for this conversation, just to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up, is I want to make this workshop a little bit interactive. So I'm going to throw some things for you to kind of play with and talk with and engage with in the Zoom chat itself. But for the most part, if you have any questions, there's going to be both sort of specific time to ask specific questions as much as an open QA at the end. So with that, what I'm going to do first is just introduce myself as soon as this presentation finishes loading up here. Not sure why it's taking so long. Tell you what, I think y'all can see this from here and there shouldn't be a problem. So my name is Conrad Ruiz, and I'm the founder of a company that I've named WellAware. WellAware is a time management training and consulting company. We specifically focus on helping ambitious professionals who work a lot of hours. We help them just stay and be healthy, sane, and successful. The way we go about doing that is by looking at all 24 hours of their day, all 7 days of their week, and just helping them manage and set expectations for that time with respect to understanding how reality actually unfolds. So we kind of track what you think the week's going to happen, how it's going to go, and then we see how it actually goes. And we kind of take all that information and create better systems, better processes, better ways of going forward with your time, so that in whatever respect of, whether be it personal or professional, whatever respect of your time you feel like could be improved, that's going to be our focus. That's kind of where the consulting element comes in, of just kind of saying, like, here are the top best things that you could do for your time, given your situation, given your resources. And so that's what I do. As a background, a little bit sort of a funny thing, I actually started off as a biomedical engineer before moving into business management and then time management and productivity. The sort of long story short for me, and I think the reason I think Gabe really appreciated my sort of story was that I've lived in a world where expectations have always been really, really high for me. As a 25-year-old, my father is 93, and the sort of expectations I've had growing up have always been to be succeeding now or yesterday. And I can understand, I loved how Gabe pointed out just a little bit earlier about how he has this frustration with wanting to have sales calls every day. And to me, I try to break that kind of frustration back down and say, well, what's the expectation behind that time? where is that coming from? And what can we look at in terms of the schedule to say when that's going to show up and how that's supposed to show up? And if it's not working the way we expect it to, what can we learn to improve or optimize? What are the best practices out there? So I love that Gabe brings up something like that. It's just one example. I hope you don't mind bringing it up, Gabe, but I think that's going to be a lot of our conversation for today around time. And so without further ado, ignore a couple of the minute-to-minute breakdown. We started off a little later than I expected, but this was the introduction. Part one, we're going to focus on just kind of organizing, or in some cases, reorganizing our space. Part two, we're going to look at focus. And then part three, we're going to look at perform. Part two is a little bit more about taking everything that we've organized and saying, okay, what really matters here? And then part three is going to be more of like some tactics, tips, and tricks, like things to actually really think about in the space of whatever it is you're focusing on. What can you actually do better? And as much as I can't meet every particular person's specific expectations with time and resources, I can throw a couple general ones out there that I think will really help to think about. And finally, open QA, and then I'll kind of close off. It won't even take 5 minutes. A little bit about the problem here. There's lots to do. There's only 24 hours, period. Everyone's got the same amount of time. Personal overwhelm is a huge deal. I think we all live in something called opportunity cost casino, where we kind of have to weigh in all of our options and be like, what's the thing that has the most priority right now? And a lot of people like to think like, if their time management's really bad, they'll be like, everything's a priority or nothing's a priority. And I think what the problem boils down to is like, you just got to know yourself well. You got to know who you are, what you can do, where your time is at, what your resources are, and how you're going to go about addressing the situation in the next 15 minutes. If you just take a little bit of time to invest in kind of introspecting, you can get a whole lot out of it and just feel better about it. And so that's what we're going to do. As a solution, what we're going to kind of focus on is kind of identifying what might be your more ideal schedule. What it really means is we're just going to perform towards what matters with your time. We're going to stay focused, and we're going to be well organized. And so to kick us off, what I want you guys to do, just like a bit of a warm-up exercise between now and 1:20, if you can, just organize your space. If you currently right now, if you can look at your desk, if you can look at like just the physical room that you're in, if it doesn't feel well organized, I invite you at your option to just start by doing that. Just kind of get yourself acquainted with all the things that have value to you by being around your physical space. And just go ahead and just start putting things in the order. If they're just a little bit disheveled from the day, feel free to just kind of reset to kind of feel like everything's kind of nice and clean now. Make sure the cables are out of the way. Just kind of put your stuff where it needs to be. Put your books all in one little stack, or your files and things like that. And just kind of go ahead. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that. In the meantime, feel free to go into the chat here in the Zoom. And if you have any questions about certain things, about where certain things should be in your physical space, by all means, feel free to ask them. Anyone else is free to answer and kind of give their feedback on like what they think are best practices. This little image right here in front of you, to me, it kind of does a good justice of kind of explaining, keep things minimal, keep things simple. I personally just have glasses here on the top side, a clock that's actually separate to the clock on my computer, my mouse, a couple cables for charging things. My desk is really, really simple. How about a dozen Post-its and to-do lists, Patrick? So we're going to get a little bit into the whole idea of organizing to-do lists and organizing space for notes, because that's a huge thing. I tend to right angle my files at the end. That's beautiful. So Andrew, a really interesting question that I'm going to have about that at some point is like, what's that pile consist of? Can that pile be organized in a way wherein it doesn't just look like, hey, it's a neatly angled pile, but there's even order within the pile. Patch, to answer your question about the Post-it notes, cool, great. So it's something that like you know, it's like the next task, right? You just kind of pull it off. Excellent. If that's what gets you to kind of put into a jive of like, this is my orderliness behind getting to the next task, great. And then, okay, what about us chaos thriving individuals? So Robin, I think the sort of the invitation there is to say, is it really chaos, or do you have a certain orderliness to the chaos? Some people who claim to be chaotic, I would say the reality is that you just happen to know where things are. The chaos is not really as chaotic as you think. I think the real issue with organization in the physical space, yeah, I put a finger on everything. So the organization about physical space is about knowing where to put your finger to get what you're looking for. If you can think about it, you already know where it is. You can just go and get it. And I know in the physical space, it tends to be, what it is. It's what's within your realm. But we're actually going to get into it in just a minute. We're also going to get into like the digital space of things. And I think that's where in today's day and age, a lot of our stuff starts to sit around. And that's going to be a lot more of an interesting conversation. It may not take necessarily 5 minutes to cover, but at least hopefully I can get you started on thinking about that space and kind of seeing if you want to dedicate some time later after this webinar to explore organizing that digital space as well. So that's kind of what we're leading up to. This is why this is the warm up. Physical space stuff's easy. I can move around. I can touch stuff. Digital is where it gets hard because everything happens on the computer. I'm just going to kind of close. I'm going to shut my mouth for a second, kind of give you guys 1 more minute or so to kind of feel like everything's good. And if you can, just go into the chat and say like,
you're not going to want to look at my desk, are you?
No, I'm not here to hold you accountable. There's no shame necessary. I'm inviting you your option to explore this time. By the way, Robin, love the photo, love the love the power drill just hanging out there.
Getting ready to do some work, so I set it down. Sorry, that just got set there a second ago. Excellent,
love it. Okay. Everyone else good? Feel free to just put a thumbs up or just say, yep, all swell in their group chat. Just let me know that you're here. Love to be engaged. Love to make sure you're enjoying your time. Cables, yes. So are you using the cables consistently, Robin? Like, is there like a game to it? Is there a rhyme or reason to why those cables exist in your world?
What happened was, this was the one I needed. And to get there, I wound up going through all these, but I have this enormous space that's kind of in a corner in the basement. So I can leave it just thrashed. And my wife, she walks by and just goes, ah, she can't stand it. So this one needs to be hanging out. That's the one that plugs into my DSLR camera, interfaces to the computer. These need to either be returned or thrown away. So that's what's happening to them right now because you've encouraged me.
Excellent. Good. I love it. Bree, yes, I love this topic as well. Love Marie Kondo, by the way. You talk about minimalizing life. Some great books if you guys are interested on the side. Marie Kondo's The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Minimalism by Greg McKeown, McKeown. I can write these things down into the chat. Magic.
Yes, organize them for us in the chat. That would be
Excellent. Marie Kondo, you can look that up. And then there's Greg McKeown, Minimalism.
So you'll like this, Conrad. Since I'm one of the 21,000 guys, people sometimes won't take no for an answer when I say I have a digital card. So here's as minimal as I would get. I wouldn't actually give them my phone number. I would still make them do the text geek, but I made some cards that actually say that on it. So,
Robin, that's hilarious.
Organized.
Love this. Organized. Okay, folks, we're going to move forward. So now that you feel like you've warmed up, or at least, I invited you. So if you're participating along, great. Now that we've done this, now I'm going to get you the next step, guys. Now we're going to think a little bit higher level. If possible, I want you to start thinking about the following 7 things. We're going to do right now, we're going to organize your tools. And I'm actually going to send you a link into the chat that's going to take you to this exact worksheet. It's going to be, it's locked, so you can't access the sheet itself, but you can make a copy of it and play with it on your drive, or you can download it and play with it on Excel if you're familiar with either of those 2 tools, and you can use those well. So I'm just going to quickly do that. Right, so basically, what I want you to look at is the following 7 items. And I want you to think carefully about what tools you use to manage these things. I'm assuming now that these items, that these things that you want to organize in your life, are things that have value by being organized. Number 1 is your time. So most people, for the sake of managing their time, they use a calendar, physical, digital. Just think about it. What do you use to organize your time? What do you use to organize your relationships? Are you using a CRM? Are you just using a contact list? Is it a digital one like the one on your phone? Or is it a physical one? Do you just keep a notebook of names like a Rolodex? Is Robin Stern's business card in there? He'll tell you that No, I'm just kidding. Actions. How do you organize your actions? Most people call it a to-do list, and there's thousands of apps out there for it. How many apps do you have that organize your to-do list? And don't just think about digital apps. Think about physical apps. I'm going to go back to Patrick Gallagher in here and say, your to-do list is comprised of a bunch of sticky notes and perhaps a sheet here or there. How's that organized? Commitments. How do you organize your commitments? Do you have some sort of strategic goal planning Excel sheet or document? Do you have some sort of like manifesto that you've created that sits on like on a notebook somewhere? Where do you organize what you're going to commit to accomplishing? Most people call this goal sheets, right? That's what the strategic goal planning here. But we're going to talk a little more about commitments in a later aspect when we get to focus. Knowledge. How do you organize your knowledge? Knowledge can sit in the form of bookshelves, books, obviously, but that's someone else's knowledge they've organized for you. You paid for that. How do you organize your knowledge? Do you use a Google Drive for all your documents? Do you have folders, physical, digital folders? Where are all those things situated? And do you have a process for capturing or like going and accessing that knowledge as easily as possible? What I love about the digital space of knowledge is if you just know the name of the thing you need to find, you can just search it. You can just search across your computer. You can search across your drive. Physical gets a little bit trickier. That's where kind of having like a management system in place is nice. But maybe it's not as necessary. Maybe your knowledge is something you only have to access once in a blue moon for certain things. Other things are a little bit more active and they sit more in your actions list, perhaps. Just putting it out there. Your library is kind of the way you define that tool. Ethos and character. This is a special one. I've included this one because I've realized a lot of us have profiles online. A lot of us have reputations. And so one of the things to think about in terms of organizing and as a tool is how do you organize your profile? How do you organize your character? And so that I think about what my Facebook says about me, what my Twitter says about me, what my LinkedIn says about me, any space where I have a presence. How is that organized? What is the value that has when it's organized towards my benefit? So I invite you to think about that. And then finally, how do you organize your review? And what is review? Review of self, review of business, review of things going on. Most people have a journal. Some people review within their strategic goal planning sheets. Some people got a means to review. Some people don't even review in any physical space at all. They just sit down in their brain and they just meditate on it. So be it. What tools do you use? So in the worksheet I shared here, if you've gotten the chance to go into and click file and make a copy, or if you want to download as an Excel sheet and work right from your computer, it's up to you how you want to go about it. Either way, what you're going to get from this Excel sheet is on the first sort of sheet here. It's very, very simple, nothing complicated here, but just kind of a helpful way to kind of help you think about what I just talked about. What are you organizing? I've listed the 7 things that I just went through here. You can add more. You can get rid of more. What are the tools? You can have more than one. You can have 0. It's okay. Where's it located? Is it on your physical workspace that we just organized? Is it somewhere hanging on your desktop inside of your computer? Or is it in the cloud somewhere? Is it on a browser that you have to access through a web page? Where are these things hanging at? Just give yourself that kind of organization of space on the higher level. And so guys, with that, I'm now going to take you to one very specific part of those tools. I think it's the most important one. I think it's the one that we all want to talk about today as respect to how to schedule more of our time. We're going to organize your needs. And so this, I'm going to task you guys, if you can, wherever it is that this exists the most valuably to you, wherever your to-do list is, I want you to think about the following 9 categories of your life. Now, people could say, hey, well, I have different categories. I've defined things as this and that. Hey, do what works for you. I just want to share with you what I've done. I've created this system. It's very simple for me. It follows the rules of 3 model, just health, wealth, culture. And within each of those 3, you get 3 more categories to kind of follow. And the idea behind these 3 things is I want you to think about what your needs are in these categories. Feel free to kind of list them out as actions that you need to take or commitments that you need to make, or things that you need to review. On the health side, nutrition, sleep, exercise. How are you eating? How are you spending time towards eating? Anything that involves food ending up in your mouth, from the grocery shopping to the cooking itself, to the cleaning at the end of the day. What are your needs behind nutrition? What are your needs behind sleep? Sleep is a very fun game for a lot of us because we have a lot of anxious things to worry about, and we have a lot of time that we would love to spend on anything but being unconscious. So my invitation is, what are your needs for sleep? If you read Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep, great PhD guy, he'll tell you that we need about 6 to 8 hours of ideal sleep. And if you could take a nap in the middle of the day, that would be absolutely fantastic. Later on in the performance section, I'm going to talk about a very particular kind of nap that you could take. Most people call it the power nap, but I'm going to invite a very special kind of power nap, one that Ben Franklin and amongst many other really great people of our past have used in order to access some of the better parts of their unconsciousness. Because if you didn't know, a lot of the good stuff happens when we're asleep. That's why it's so necessary. See Robin laughing. I love it. Love the smile, man. Exercise. How are you guys managing exercise in your time? Do you get 5 minutes of it? Are you going for a walk? Do you go to the gym? Do you have a whole routine set thing going on? Like, and what are your expectations for that? Like, are you trying to gain weight, lose it, have a certain level of strength available to you? Feel free to organize your needs around that. I'm going to quickly fast forward to wealth now. How do you network? How do you spend time, dedicate time, invest time towards networking? How do you create? When I say create, I mean create value. You know, what are the things that you do that you sit down and you actually take something that's of lesser value and turn it into greater value? Are you creating documentation for something? Are you building a business card for somebody, Gabe? Are you selling promotional swag, Patrick? What are you doing that actually adds value? How are you organizing your time around that? What do you need to do in that space? Prospecting. How do you prospect value? I tend to take this on both a personal and professional level. Professional level, how do I identify someone who might need my services? How do I identify when I need somebody's services? How do I dedicate time to making the decision on that? Prospecting is a lot about decision making in the context of exchanging value. But one of my favorite personal examples is when I'm grocery shopping, I'm actually performing prospecting at the same time as I'm doing my nutrition needs. I'm prospecting nutrition. Just a way to kind of think about it, where you're exchanging time to consider whether or not you're going to purchase certain pieces of food. On the professional side, it's the same thing, except you're offering services so that you can buy said food, amongst other things. Just think about that. How do you manage those needs? Culture is one of my more interesting, favorite kind of spaces. How do you study? How do you learn more about the world and what you need to know, what you need to do, and how you can be better, just kind of stay relevant to the times? How do you review? Consider this hour of review kind of time for you. How do you review outside of this kind of time? How do you rest? At the end of the day, we cannot do these 8 other things that kind of impact our life without relaxing at some point. How do you manage the needs to rest? Okay. With that, folks, I'm going to take you to the focus side. So now that you have this kind of big cacophony list of all the things you need to do and think about, I want you to follow a process that Google has been exclaiming for years now. A lot of really, really, really smart business execs follow this. You can also follow another system that's very similar to this. It's called SMART goaling. If you're not familiar with SMART, this is called the Google OKR method. And there's actually a worksheet element here, so feel free to go into this Excel sheet and kind of check this out, because this is actually what we're going to be talking about here. And so I've actually, in this sheet itself, I've actually taken the 9 categories and kind of listed them out here. So feel free to create your OKRs around this, or change the objective to be something else, or make the objective very specific. It's not just nutrition in general. I have nutrition with a very particular goal in mind. So let's talk about what that looks like. The OKR method stands for objectives and key results. It should really include one more thing, which is called initiatives. So it's objective, key results, and initiatives. Again, rule of 3 here. So how this works is you define something that you want. You define an objective. I want a desired thing to happen. Okay, can you break that down a little bit further? Can you make that quantitative, sort of where the SMART goal kind of element comes in? Can you give me a key result? I'll give you an example. Nutrition. I want to lose weight. Key result, I want to go from 150 pounds to 140 pounds. That's a key result. That's a quantitative measure. That's something you can actually put numbers to. What's another key result in that same space of losing weight? I want the thickness. I want my body mass index to be smaller. I want to have a certain size waist line. Think about sleep.
Is that something,
I want to sleep better.
Does that have to be something that can be by the world standards? Like I'm trying to get health, and I have a hill, and I want to be able to run the hill 3 times nonstop without
That's
dying,
a fantastic.
that's being dead. So is that an objective?
It's
I can
perfectly. I would say that's a fantastic key result, right? The objective sounds like you're in an exercise-based objective, and the objective is to get stronger, to be able to
live longer.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. That's a great, and that's something that means something. I want to live longer. And so as a result, a key result that's going to help me define that objective is the fact that I can actually run across this hill 3 times without getting tired. Okay, cool. Once you get to the key results that you want, you don't have as many as you want. I like to keep it at 3, just to keep it not too complicated, not have too many things to try to measure. Then get to the initiative. So what are you actually going to do to drive that key result? And so, Robin, to take your example of like running across the hill, maybe your initiative is to start trying to run those 3 laps across the hill. Maybe your initiative in the first week is to just try to do 1 lap without stopping. Maybe you want to do 3 laps, but you want to give yourself a couple of breaks. And so the idea is to kind of put the initiatives are meant to push you up into the end result, which is that key result. You want to go start from a small step and kind of work your way up. And so you can modify, you can change initiatives, you can adapt to them. You can adapt them to the reality of how you see things going. I could say, hey, I want to have an initiative to push an exercise perspective. I want an initiative to push 100 pounds of weight across my chest. But it turns out when I actually get into the gym, I can only really do 50. Okay, let me reset the expectation.
Yeah, I can run half. I can run half and walk half at this point. So that's where I'm at.
Cool. So that's the initiative at its current, right? The key result is to get to the 3. So maybe your next initiative to write down is I need to get a full lap without rest, right? And you can set, the beautiful thing about initiatives is you can set time frames for them. In fact, part of the value add here is to go about doing that, to kind of set a time frame in which you try to get to this objective. On the right-hand side, I just kind of left a little bit of an open strategy space for you to kind of write out like, okay, here's how I might go about this. Like, here's how I would plan this out. Feel free not to dig too hard into it. Just kind of give your approach. Like, how would I actually do this? I think a lot of people in the realm of goals tend to be like, this is the goal I want. But it's like, okay, well, tell me what you're actually going to do. Walk me through the strategy of how you're actually going to pull it off. And let's actually assess whether or not that makes sense. And then let's test it in the real world and come back to it and say, okay, do we need to reset expectations? Do we need to reset strategy? What do we need to do? So that's the focus on this section here. And so now what I'm inviting you to do, I know we're kind of cramming through the minutes here, so you may not be able to write every single thing you want to do down, everything on your to-do list down, but that's fine. Because honestly, I do want you to focus. I want you to prioritize what matters. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the to-do list that we've already now kind of introduced to the OKR model of saying like, okay, I want to kind of define this commitment a little bit better. I want to break down how I'm going to go about approaching it. Now what I want you to do is I want you to decide, especially for things that are kind of out of your I have to do this. I want you to decide, is this stuff urgent? Is this stuff important? So there's the 4 Ds that I want to introduce you here in the world of prioritization. You have 4 Ds to decide upon when it comes to any kind of task or obligation in your life. You either do it, you either delegate it, you defer it or decide when to do it later, or you drop it or you don't do it. I think in a lot of our expectations of our time, yes, I've mentioned in this list that these 9 categories kind of fall into everything of your life, but I'm certain you're going to throw in more than enough things for you to do in a reasonable 20-hour time frame. Especially where professional life is concerned. Julie's like, yep. Especially where professional time is concerned, you really want to think about, if you're going to, instead of doing something, can you delegate it? Can you defer doing it? Can you just drop it completely? Is it even worth the time? So I'm inviting you, amongst your to-do list of all the things that matter to you, put some priorities in check. Feel free to ask me. I would love for you guys to go in the chat, like, should I prioritize this or should I prioritize that? Is this more important or is that more important? Can I delegate this? Should I defer this? Happy to answer that in the next 3 minutes. In the meantime, just think about what matters.
Hey, for the record, Conrad, I think your video is kind of stuck. I don't know if it's just me or.
Oh, man. I think what happens is my camera is now finally out of battery. So I apologize.
It's okay.
I may have to switch over to my phone, but kind of just stay focused on what's going on here. I think I'm okay with just sharing the screen and kind of letting people. Okay, FOMO regarding networking events. Okay, so I'm going to ask Andrea a question. So when you talk about fear of missing out, what I'm going to think about is you're looking at a level of need in which, by going to a networking event, you create the opportunity to prospect or create value, right? So you're kind of looking to take advantage of what the potential of what that networking event can conspire. What I have to ask is there a higher value, is there a higher level of priority, of importance and urgency to doing other things than networking?
It
If it's
depends
following
on
up
the
with
day. I mean, that's where the challenge comes in because of our unique times, that whereas I have clients, I'd like another 4 more clients to add to my list, but is it that event that day at that time that I'm going to miss? And that would have been the opportunity for to meet someone who was interested in my public relations services. And, you know, like today, I inhaled lunch before this call. I have a call right after this call. I have a 45-minute break, which, I mean, I had 2 breaks already today, short ones, and I've already booked 4 interviews during those breaks for clients. But I've got to get my client work done. So I have that fear of missing out of some of these networking events, but I have decided to drop the evening networking events. And now that's my time.
Okay, so I think the level of need here to address is whether or not, Andrea, you feel it's possible for you to continue to. So I would put the level of need for creating value for your existing clients and for your existing prospects as higher than going out networking. So if you didn't have enough time to do the networking and these higher level need things in the prospecting and creating value space, I would emphasize those prospecting, creating value elements first, and then bring the networking at a time in which you have that time. If you're so slammed with clients, now I think let's call this the ideal world where you do end up reaching 2 more clients, but you realize in order to get even more than that, in order to meet some sort of financial metrics I'm imagining you're trying to hit for yourself, you now need to somehow create more time in the day because you can't do it all. You can't create the value and prospect the existing folks and network in order to continue the prospecting pipeline. When that happens, then you kind of have to sit down and realize, okay, why can't I actually fit this time? Why do I need 26 hours? Is there somewhere else in my life along the other categories of my time that I can optimize so that I get the time back so that I can show up to the networking and do the prospecting and do the creative value creation and still meet a 24-hour schedule that's reasonable, that's not going to ask me to blow my brains out?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's many ways to go about that. It could be there's so many ways you can go about finding the time.
And I mean, someone said, did I read the book, The 4-Hour Workday, which I haven't read yet, but I'm thinking, okay, there's no way I would be able to fit everything into a 4-hour workday or whatever that book is. And
not with that attitude.
No, I have to change my attitude. Oh my God, I have to change my attitude.
No, on a more practical level, Andrea, set 15 to 30 minutes to I mean, have you bought the book already?
No, not yet.
Okay, call to action, buy the book now. Set 15 to 30 minutes to every day to start reading the book. Tim Ferriss is going to walk you through how to practically hire a VA is essentially what he gets to in that 4-Hour Workweek book. He's going to say, figure out the tasks you don't have to actually do that you can hire someone else to do. And it doesn't matter if you lose a little bit of cash in the front, you're buying time. Time is invaluable. And if you're right in what your value add is, you can actually make more money than it's worth hiring that VA to do those tasks for you. And that's going to bring you back your networking. That's going to bring you back your prospecting. That's going to bring you back your higher level creative.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different. I'm a solopreneur in public relations. I don't have any pitching tasks or client tasks that I can hand over to a VA. I don't want to turn this into, Andrea's stuff, but I've got to do all the work. That's why I'm in business for myself and not working.
Oh, that's a good point, though.
So,
And
it's a lot.
Okay.
you guys have made me think about it too, because, and I would never have considered a VA, but maybe there are some things that we think we can't delegate that we could delegate. Maybe we don't have to do every single thing. That's something I want to think about for myself, at least.
Think, Andrea, think outside of your professional world. What can you delegate? Where in the nutrition, sleep, and exercise? Okay, you can't delegate sleep. Where can you delegate nutrition? Do you have to buy groceries? Do you
No,
have
my
to
husband
travel
does
to
it.
your door? Excellent, free labor.
My husband does all the grocery shopping. My husband does 90% of the cooking. And we wake up and we exercise together at 7 a.m. So.
Okay. And now I really want to see what's going on with the time. Okay. Well, I'd love to chat further if that's okay.
Yeah.
You pique my interest. I like brick walls in this world. Okay, folks, I'm going to skip on us over to planning. This is the element of focus that matters. So now that we've projected a little bit about like what matters and how we're going to do it, we kind of set a little bit of initiative if we can. Sorry, I couldn't get to everyone's questions, by the way. Don't take any blame on that, Andrew, please. It was delightful to hear. Now we prioritized what matters at the very least, in some respect. I know, folks, I'm kind of rushing you through this, and like, if you had more time to do this, that would be great. That's fine. You've got the time. Make it. Just set it in your calendar. 15 minutes. That's fine. That's what we're actually doing right now. Go into your calendar right now. And if there's anything that you have to put into there, put it into there. I don't care if it's a meeting, it's a task, it's a thing that you want to study or read a little bit more about. Just put the actual time into your calendar.
This is where I drop the ball every time, because it's all right here. And I think, how am I going to waste the time to put it into the calendar when it's right here? But then because it's right here, it goes on by and doesn't get accomplished. So I know the need is there, but achieving it eludes me constantly.
So here's where I'm going to get into. We're going to get into performance in just a minute, but because I know that's kind of the challenge, right? Where you're like, okay, cool, got it. It's simple as just saying I have 24 hours in the day and I have X number of tasks to do, so I might as well just kind of fit them somewhere. What we're going to talk about a little bit more tactically in just a minute is this idea that we have to think about how reasonable are our expectations for what we need to accomplish and how that's going to happen. What sense of familiarity do we have with the task that's going to say, does this really take 5 minutes? What surprises or things that we aren't accounting for are going to show up into our schedule or could show up into our schedule that we'd like to have some buffer time towards? These are just some high-level things to think about. But right now, for all intents and purposes, at least for the things that really goddamn matter right now, that you may have been putting off, that you know are really important, that you know are really urgent, slap them on your calendar. Don't just slap them on the top and call them an all-day activity. Like, actually give them a set amount of time to the most reasonable effect possible. I really have to encourage that. Like, if you need 3 hours to do something, give yourself 3 hours to do it. And don't put those 3 hours in a place that's unreasonable itself. Don't say, I'm going to get this done from 1 to 4 a.m. in the morning. Because chances are you're going to want to be asleep. The level of need for sleep then is much higher. Yeah, okay. With that, I'm going to share with y'all a little bit story about what we kind of call reasonable efficiency. It's going to tie in to what we just spoke about this whole idea about like, well, what does it mean to really be efficient about every single minute or hour of my day? Because essentially what I've invited you to do is just go into your calendar and block off every single minute with something. Even if that something is rest, you're blocking off that time. How reasonably efficient can you be? If you were to take a guess, Would you think it'd be smarter to be 90% efficient or 100% efficient? Feel free to put your thoughts in the chat. 90% efficient or 100% efficient? I'm going to quickly share with you a story in just a second about what it means to be 100% efficient. So back way before COVID times, yeah, here we go. 20, great answer, Robin. That's the spirit. Yes. It's not even about, like, this is the thing. People, we set crazy expectations, folks. Andrew says 90+%. I'm going to challenge that in just a minute. I'm going to show you how. I'll show you why. Airlines used to be so efficient that they would specifically max out the number of folks they had on every single plane. Do you know what happened? One plane couldn't take off. They had a layover. Guess what happened? Every other plane had no space to fit those layover folks. Those folks would have been stuck forever and ever because the system was so optimal that if you missed one plane, that was it. You had to go drive home or take a boat, depending on where you were. Another good story about this is a factory, and this is sort of like the generalized story of this. Think about any factory that has a machine that, when running at 100% efficiency, produces the max amount of output. What happens when one part of that machine breaks? The whole system fails. It's better to be 90% efficient or even 80% efficient, or for all intents and purposes, 20% efficient at just the few things that matter, that actually get value, rather than to be 100% efficient at a bunch of meaningless crap. Or at the very least, even 100% efficient at everything, because as soon as one part of the system fails, as soon as you miss that workout or miss that routine or don't get enough sleep, then everything is going to come and hit you like a train. So, in line with that conversation, we're going to take you to the last step in the worksheet, as well as a little bit more of a tactical thinking. And again, I know I may be rushing a little bit of your like, okay, well, which one of these am I going to try? Again, just take 15 minutes outside of this time. Maybe later today, maybe right after this call. It doesn't matter, just schedule it. That's what we focused on before, just scheduling the time. Tactically speaking, you should know we are not meant to work every single hour at the same level of output. We have our ebbs and flows. We have our goods and our bads. There's more I could share on this. One of the things I'm going to share is about ultradian performance rhythm. It's just an idea here that we could take maybe an hour, 30 minutes max before we start to slump. Ride that slump. Chill out, rest, review, do something, not work. Heal, as they like to put it, then go back into another hour 30. If an hour 30 is too much for you, or the tasks are too small to kind of try to fit it into such a large amount of time, break it down even further. Pomodoro technique, if you're not familiar with it already. 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. My favorite use of that is just literally in that 5 minutes of time where I have off, actually review what I just did. Just kind of cut a quick note. This is how this went. That way I have that information for later. So my review goes a lot faster down the line when I actually sit down and really review my schedule. Or I just take a break. I get up, do a couple quick push-ups. My favorite thing to fit into a small 5-minute window is getting right out there and just doing 4 quick push-ups. I don't even do 10. 4 is enough. You don't need to hit a whole set even. Just little things. But give yourself time to take a break. A lot of people will say this, a lot of people will mention this, but a lot of people won't do it. A lot of people won't incorporate it into their schedule because things just get kind of slogged back to back to back. But if you're more intentional with your schedule and you say, hey, I'm going to take this 1 hour 30, great, and then I'm going to take this 20 minutes for myself. If you actually intentionally put that in your schedule, now people have to fit your 1 hour 30, especially when you're in that networking space where everyone's like, oh, give me 30 minutes of your time. It's like, all right, well, pick out what works. By the way, and on a small side note, if you're not using Calendly, if you're still messaging people and saying, hey, when is a good time for you to be available? No. Please, welcome to the modern century. Use Calendly. Any system you can take advantage that takes work off of you, for the love of God, apply it.
There you go, Ron.
And so that's kind of what, sorry, go ahead.
No, Ron texted me about doing a one-on-one, and I just sent him my Calendly link.
You just slap that Calendly over, like, don't even get me with that. Yeah, and it's weird. Like, I love when people go like, oh, what are you available? I'm like, no. Guys, part of the last worksheet, the perform worksheet, I just kind of threw a couple snippets in here. Feel free to add your own or modify some of these, but there's so many ways you can take out responsibility for things. Think about where your time goes. If I could add one more category into this element, it'd be travel. I kind of got rid of it because I realized most of us are now working from home pretty much all the time. So the only time you jump up and down is to go grocery shopping. And believe you me, if it's worth it, if you've got a family to feed and you don't want to spend that 30 minutes or however long it takes for you to go grocery shopping, get on Instacart and have your food delivered to you. If you don't like deciding on what dinner to make, I have a friend who literally, she created an entire system where you don't even have to decide what dinner should be. For $2 a week, dinner is decided for you, as well as groceries. You just have to go and buy them. There are so many little ways. And you think about, oh, but that's money here, that's money there. Okay, fine. But measure, if you're in the middle of tug of war between networking and prospecting, and you're just trying to find time to do those things, honestly, spend a little bit of money not having to think about your food. Spend a little bit of money not having to think about your exercise. I don't know if you have to go to the extent of a personal trainer, but if you're trying to decide what set to do, go on YouTube and pick up a workout. I've been doing 6-minute ab exercises over the last 3 months. I don't decide what to do. I just have someone else do it for me. That's fine. Totally okay. And now that the camera's off, I can tell you all I have a 6-pack. Okay. So please feel free to take a look at this list and this worksheet here. Feel free to add stuff to yourself. Like, feel free to use this as a kind of complimentary list to remind you, like, what are all the different performance tactics that I can take to improve the amount of time that I have, or decrease the amount of energy that I require to spend to get something done, or just make more use of the money that I'm putting into this particular investment. Again, this is part prospecting. You're kind of prospecting all these little opportunities and see which one works. Again, take 15 minutes to research a little further, another 15 minutes to actually explore trying it out, see how it works. And if you have any particular questions about any particular one of these categories, like, I can walk you through the entire gambit of how I've made myself more automated, less responsible, or otherwise just, I mean, you watch me in the kitchen, I'm like robotic. I hate cooking personally. So the faster I'm out of there, the better. There's so many ways to think about it. It's a game. Honestly, to me, it's a game to just try to see how quickly you can get something done while still keeping the quality. Okay. Again, last thing here, and I think this is the most important element of performance, and I think this is the one thing a lot of people maybe forget about. Schedule feedback for yourself about how well you're doing. I threw Pomodoro in here as a sort of a second reminder, kind of sharing a little bit more about how I said, hey, take 25 minutes to do something and 5 minutes to review how well you did it. The idea behind that is that maybe in the future, or should be in the future, there should be a learning curve to whatever it is that you're doing. That learning curve should be improving. The more conscious you are about that learning curve and where you're at and what you could do better, faster you can be. Be that in cooking, be that in your professional work, be that in how you fall asleep, be that in how you get your exercise going. There are so many different things to learn. And if you just figure out one thing that you think, I could try to learn what to do this better with. I could try to figure out how to spend less time or less money, but find a better product, Invest those little snippets of time and do it right in the middle of your rest. Because honestly, what else do you want to do? Most people don't even turn off to begin with. Most of us as business owners, we don't turn off. Fine. Use that time to figure out how to turn on smarter. What do I recommend for organizing, digitizing my book of clients? I refuse to have tons of notebooks. Bree, do you have a CRM? Oh, your book of clients. Yeah, your Rolodex, right? Are we talking about your networks? Not yet. Okay. If you just want to get started, just put together a Google Sheet. When I say track every minute, Robin, I think what I'm trying to kind of address is the idea of take a task, give yourself 25 minutes to do it, and then review how that went for the 5 minutes. Or if give yourself longer amounts of time too. If you try to track every single minute, you'll find that experience in itself takes up a lot of time already, and it can be really frustrating really quickly.
I think what I was referring to
side
is
note,
you started off by saying we look at what you're doing and what you want to accomplish every day, and then we go back and we look the next day at what you actually
Okay, I got it. So
That's where I was
it's not about, you're
I
not
was
talking
giving
about
some follow-up.
meticulousness.
Yeah, that to
I
me,
love that.
that gets me, because I have so much to do and I get a ton of it done, but I never actually go back and look. I got 80% of what I was setting out to do yesterday done. That would really encourage me that I'm on the right space. And sometimes I feel like another failure because I feel like I didn't get those last 3 things done. But if I looked at, I really did accomplish 3 pages worth of stuff today, I'd be in a much better place. So that to me is a huge nugget that I took away. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify, don't be meticulous about the time tracking, for the love of God. That's a job. That's my job, actually. Don't do it. Don't do it. Let me handle it. If you want me to look at every single minute of your time, fine. Feel free to hire me. That's fine. But just know I probably will also say no, because I can't stand that experience. I'm actually working on a product to automate that system out of the world, because it's crazy.
It is.
There's a lot of data in there. Don't get me wrong. It's really valuable. It's just really time intensive.
Okay,
Sorry, go ahead. And before I know we're at the limit, so I'm gonna share my last minute, my little tidbit on napping. So Ben Franklin used to do this thing. So long story short, sleep, beautiful system to follow into. Unconsciousness is a great way for our brain to kind of like sift through problems without our consciousness being in the way. Because consciousness is just a lot more complicated to process. If you push it out of the way, brain solves a lot of things on our behalf. But when you go to bed, you come out way more refreshed and kind of like having better answers than you did when you went to before the night before. So the thing that Ben Franklin did is that instead of putting a 20-minute timer, but by his bedside or by his rest side, if you will, during the day, what he instead did was he took advantage of the knowledge that our bodies will naturally fall into they'll actually lose their sort of muscular tone or their strength as soon as we fall into that unconscious state. And it's that exact moment that we start to fall into actual sleep. If you're just trying to rest and think about a problem, you don't want to fall to sleep. You want to doze off, but you don't want to fall asleep, because then you get stuck in that sleep cycle. And then if you disrupt that, then you've given yourself a bad day. So instead, what you should do is you do what Ben Franklin did. You should have this sort of like reclining chair or something that's nice and comfortable that you can kind of like doze off in. But what you want to do is you want to have your hands by your side and hold on to some nice heavy object, something that's going to make a nice clang on the floor as soon as you drop it. And the idea is very simple. You want to doze off to the point where your muscular control is lost and that clang hits the floor and wakes you up right at the moment in which you've just passed out. It's the perfect nap. It's not time clock oriented, so you don't miss out on either being too early or too late, and either start to sleep and then have to disrupt that, or not get enough of that dozing to actually think through the problem that you have in hand. And that's the Ben Franklin nap.
Okay,
so
very
it's 2
cool.
o'clock now and I have all my time. Yeah, I know we have to.
No, plus I wanted to give Andrea a chance to talk about next week too. Go ahead, Andrea.
Great. Thanks, Gabe. Thank you, Conrad. That was very helpful, very informative. Next week, Gabe has invited me, thank you, Gabe, to talk about public relations and how public relations benefits your business by making sure you get press coverage and what that press coverage does for you. So please tell your fellow business colleagues to join us next week on the 16th for my discussion on public relations. You'll learn some tips about PR, and you'll learn the difference between public relations and advertising, which so many people confuse the two, and I will explain how they're different and what you need to do to get your business, your product, and your name in the press. So that's Wednesday, the 16th at, I can't even remember, Gabe. What time are we doing this at?
We'll have to go to this 1 o'clock, Julie? Is that what you said? Thank you. I can't remember.
So
I can't remember. I just go to that page and look.
Everybody go to the Gabe's page and please sign up and join me next Wednesday.
Digitalaccelerant.com/network.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Well, Conrad, you did not disappoint. It was that was really some powerful, valuable information. I think everybody would agree. It was just time well spent. Time well spent. That's I didn't mean that to be a pun, but no, I think it was. I really do appreciate what you did for us, Conrad, and I'm so glad that I recorded it successfully because now we
Yes.
can share this with other people.